Welcome, I'm Vivek, and in this video, let's discuss how to deal with the verbal section. Coming to the method that I'm going to explain here, I only developed this method, and using this, I scored 99.61 percentile in verbal section of CAT, that is, without using any CAT study materials or any CAT coaching centers, and in GATE I scored full marks in verbal. In this video, I'll be explaining what is the mode of reading that you should choose, what you should read, and most importantly, how you should read. And at the end of this video, I'll also be explaining certain tricks that you can use in order to answer questions on reading comprehension, right? Let's get into this. Before we get into the solution, let's see what is the problem, because once you understand the problem, it's very easy to find the solution. Why is verbal section difficult? Normally, whenever you're writing answers to a question, let's say you are solving a numerical problem. Here, you'll first find the answer for this, and once you have the final answer, you'll go through the options. And once you find the option, once your answer matches with one of the options, you're 100% sure that that particular option is the correct one. Here, you know that one particular option is 100% right and all others are 0% right. Here, you are very confident that you have to mark that particular option. But this doesn't work in verbal. What happens in verbal is there will be 3 or 4 options among which you'll get confused, and it may be the case that 2 or 3 of the given options will be correct and one among those options will be more correct, and your task is to identify that. Here, one option may be 90% right, one may be 60% right, one may be 50% right. So here the margin of correctness is not as much as you had in the case of that 100% and 0%. Here it's a bit lower. So the margin of correctness is not that much, and it creates a confusion in mind whether option A is right or if option B is right. So here what you have to do is you have to see the option, mark it as okay, this is not possible, option B, okay, possible, option C, possible, option D, not possible. Then you can decide whether option B or C, which one is more correct. So in order to do this, you need to develop that instinctive responsibility that as soon as you complete reading a paragraph and see the options, you should be able to go through the option once and suddenly identify that these are the possible ones, and among them, this particular one is the best option. How to do this? For this, you have to develop a particular mode of reading, and you should know what to read and how to read. First thing, before we get into this, whatever be your language proficiency, do not be worried of it. If you have very good language proficiency, that's well and good. But if it's not that, don't go behind language skills. Instead, work on your comprehension skills, which I'll tell you how to. This is more fruitful than working on your language skills, because even if your vocabulary is not that great, it's still okay, because even if you don't get the meaning of 2 or 3 words, still you'll be able to answer all the questions, because you'll be able to make guesswork so that you know, okay, this word means something like this. So it'll work. So believe me, go after comprehension skills and not language skills. Now, the mode of reading. Normally, we have 2 particular modes of reading. The first mode is the one that you use for reading novels, stories and all this stuff. What happens is, as soon as you start reading, you'll get totally immersed into whatever you're reading. Let's say it's a novel, you don't even realize how many pages you've turned or how many hours you're reading. Here what happens is, you don't know what is the exact content in each paragraph. You just know that the gist of this chapter is this particular story. This is, here you read very fast, it saves your time, but this is not the one for examinations. Now the second mode. This is the one that you normally choose while reading academic books or something conceptual. What you do is you read very slowly and very deeply. You go through every particular word so that you'll be able to inject everything so deeply into your brain so that you understand the concept, or also you keep it in mind for longer. But here you read very slowly, and this is not the one that you need for examinations. So the first thing for examinations, in order to tackle verbal ability, is to develop a third mode of reading, because otherwise you automatically slip into one of these two modes of reading because that's what you are familiar with. What you have to do is you have to just skim through the paragraph, and while doing this, you just have to keep the whole content into your short-term memory. You don't have to keep all this information deep into your brain. At the same time, you have to know what is the essence of each paragraph, so that at the end, if you ask because each paragraph has one logical piece of information, and instead of knowing the complete gist of that article, you should be knowing what is the essence in each particular paragraph. How to do this? For this, I'll tell you what to read and how to read. So the first thing, what to read. Read anything that has logical or conceptual information as chunks of data. For this, I'll recommend reading newspapers. And if you ask me which newspaper, I'll tell Indian Express. The reason is this, I find its vocabulary and the sentence structure more suitable for these sort of purposes. See, you can choose any newspaper, just don't choose that newspaper which makes mistakes in every other sentence, and also not that newspaper which uses tough vocabulary, because you are not trying to be so proficient in vocabulary. You have to improve your comprehension skills. So you should be able to understand the words in that newspaper, and you should be able to get the essence of the paragraph. Your comprehension skills is what you have to improve more than your vocabulary, right? So once you pick any one newspaper, how to read? This is the most important part. First thing that you have to do is to get out of your contemporary newspaper reading mode, because in our newspaper reading mode, what we do is we try to just get the entire information in one go and understand what's the news for this particular day. Here you'll be very carefree, and maybe by taking a sip of a tea and just going through the newspaper. This is not what you have to do. What you have to do is this. Go through the newspaper. Let's say you're picking one particular headline. Now, don't choose sports page, choose anything else, because in sports page normally news is of one particular format. So after 3 or 4 days, you know that news is in this particular format with match, scores and all these things. So it'll be easier for you to grasp. Here you are trying to improve, so choose maybe current affairs, politics, anything, whatever is your interest. Choose one particular heading. Now, go through the paragraph, the first paragraph, understand the essence, and as soon as you complete the paragraph, stop. As soon as you complete the paragraph, stop and recall the complete essence of the paragraph. Try to recall whatever is there in that paragraph. By doing this, what happens is you'll be able to understand the content of that particular paragraph separately. Then you go to the next paragraph, repeat the same process. At the end of this, what happens is you'll be able to say that this particular article is divided into, let's say, 5 particular paragraphs, and each paragraph, as you'll be knowing, are logical pieces of information. So you should be able to identify each particular logical piece of information separately. Once you do this, see, initially this is very time consuming. What happens is, as you start reading, you'll find that initially, yes, it will take some time to read one paragraph, and after that, this recalling will take even more time. But this is just during the initial stages. Once you practice, once you know how to do it, it will be easier. See, as soon as you complete one paragraph, you'll suddenly recall that, okay, this is the content. I'll go to the next one, next one, next one. So it will happen very quickly. Now, once you develop this, there is something to note here. If you are learning something conceptual, let's say you learned for 10 hours for 4 days. That is total of 40 hours. And some other student did this by learning for 10 minutes for 240 days. That's again 40 hours. Which person do you think will have an edge over the other? What I feel is normally these two people will be having comparable sort of skills with them. That if it is conceptual information, you'll be able to say that, okay, maybe this person will do, maybe this person will do, but they have comparable abilities. But that is not the case with verbal. Here, if you do for 10 hours for 4 days, that's a total waste of your time. If you do it for 10 minutes for 240 days, That's very beneficial. So whatever you're doing, try to spread it in a span of time instead of keeping it for the end and doing it in the last few days. Because, see, when you're learning something, normally you want to get the concept, you want to get the information. So even if you do it in, try to do it in a span of few days, it will still work. Maybe it will help you keep everything fresh in your memory. But here, you're not trying to store any information in your head. You're trying to acquire a new skill. While acquiring a skill, it's always better if you practice it over a period of time. See, if you are, let's say, practicing badminton, if you try to practice for 24 hours for one day, you're not going to be a great player. But if you do it for, let's say, half an hour for many days, that will improve you, right? Same works here. You have to develop a new skill, that is understanding each paragraph separately, that too with complete essence. So for this, you need to do it during a span of time. Now, while answering comprehension skill-based questions, there are few tricks that you can use. First thing, is the most important thing, is to see it from the eyes of the person who prepares a question rather than as an aspirant. See, if there is a question in, let's say, CAT or GATE, this is an all India level examination. So the person who prepared the question will have clear-cut reasons why one particular answer is right. That is why you should mark option B instead of C, A or D. So in this case, he'll surely have perfect reasons for why one is the correct answer. What you have to do is find the ways in which he can prepare the correct options. But that's not so easy. That's not so possible. So what do? You have to find those ways by which he'll prepare the wrong options, because that will help you. You'll be able to eliminate all the wrong options and reach the best one, right? So here, how can you identify the wrong options? I'll give you 3 general formats. The first one is taking lines from the paragraph as it is and putting it in the option, but this particular option won't be having any connection with the given question. So this is a very basic trap, which even if you have practiced for a few days, you'll be able to cover up for this. But there are 2 other traps in which you normally fall. The first one, this is when you have an option which is perfectly in sync with the given question, and that's perfectly in sync with the paragraph. So it seems perfect, that is right. But there is some other option which is having a bit more information and it is a bit more complete. So if you compare these 2 options, the second one is more correct for this particular question. So by reading the first one, you'll feel like, okay, this is possibly an answer, but the other question is more correct. So this is one trap which you may fall into, and there is one more which is very, very important from an examination perspective. There may be an option in which you have complete information for answering the question. So this is totally perfect, but there is a bit more information that's added, and this information is actually correct information but not given in the paragraph. See, logically, with your knowledge, you'll be knowing that this information is right, but you're not asked to use your knowledge. You're asked to answer this based on the paragraph. You have to comprehend the paragraph and answer the question. So do not use your knowledge in answering those questions there. This is probably the only situation where while writing an examination, you are asked to not use your personal knowledge. You have to keep it aside. It's easy, right? It's actually good for you. You don't have to prepare anything. Just go to the examination hall, see the paragraph and start preparing. So this is actually the best thing for you. And what you have to do is keep your knowledge aside. Use only the information that's given in the paragraph. If there is extra information which seems correct but is not there in the paragraph, that's the wrong option. So this worked for me. This particular trick of reading newspapers in the format that I've mentioned, this actually worked for me, and hope you liked the video. Thanks for watching.